Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am in Greenville, North Carolina again, and thanks to Visit Greenville, North Carolina office for letting me use their space while I'm working up here an hour from home. So I'm excited to be here with you today and introduce this conversation to you. I'm joined by Rachel Martin, this finger here, who has spent more than 2 decades working across every part of the wine world, from vineyards and winemaking to distribution and hospitality. She is the co-founder and author of AFNA Wine Certified, which is the world's first professional certification focused entirely on alcohol-free and non-alcohol wine. And she's also the founder and CEO of Oceana Wines, which is in Virginia, north of me in North Carolina.
No, it's in California.
Oh, it's in California, but you live in North. Yeah, okay.
I'm personally in Virginia right now.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Which it also includes a luxury non-alcoholic wine line called Oceano Zero. I'm going to get this right. And what I love about Rachel's work is that she's not trying to take anything away from the wine industry. She's expanding it. I mean, like, she grew up with wine and has been making wine. And so she's helping planners, venues, and hospitality teams understand how to serve guests who aren't drinking alcohol. So welcome to the show, Rachel. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. It's so good to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. So you've been working in wine for over 20 years in traditional wine production. What was the turning point that led you to focus on non-alcoholic wine, and why did you see a need for a professional certification in this category?
Well, I'm a wine lover and I'm a wine producer. As you said, I've been doing it for the better part of my adult life. I have been making wines from single vineyards, estate vineyards, as well as working with vineyard grape growers. And just came around in 2022 when I was observing the industry at large and was interested in opportunities, possibilities, direction as a business owner. And at that time, I was living in New York City. And I shopped at Boisson, which was a non-alcoholic bottle shop, one of the first, and they had multiple locations. Anyhow, I went in just to research the category. I looked at all the labels, looked at the bottles, where they produced, and then I bought a whole bunch and tasted them all and realized that people like me, or those who really love wine and know what wine's supposed to taste like, weren't being served by these products. And it was maybe a little bit confusing looking at the different wines that were available. There was no real talk about where they're from, where the grapes are grown. Typically, there was no vintage. It just seemed like it was an obvious service or opportunity that I could help people drink less by making great non-alcoholic wines.
Well, that's awesome. And, I'm just one of elephant in the room. Like, one gentleman posted on Instagram when I posted this, talking to you about this. He's like, no, let's just drink some sparkling water. I mean, and I know it's kind of gotten a bad rap, non-alcoholic wine. So, but making wine requires knowing the land and the soil and the terroir. Did I say that right?
Terroir. Yes, that's okay.
So how do you, that's still just as important in the non-alcoholic versions of the wine, right?
It depends on the wine to start with. So not all wines with their alcohol intact were made to talk about sense of place. Not all of them are made like art, for example, or want to tell a story. Some wines are just to quaff, so that's really not exactly it. However, the comment, there's a stigma for non-alcoholic wine, but adult non-alcoholic beverages at large,
Yeah.
some people don't really understand why you would want to drink these. And some people don't, some people feel like they have to protect alcohol for whatever reason it is. And the trade has done that historically about non-alcoholic wine. But yes, as you're saying, non-alcoholic wines, they start as wine and they are made from grapes that are grown in vineyards. And so it's an add to the wine industry producing non-alcoholic wines, especially there's been a dip in consumption of alcohol in general. And non-alcoholic wines are supporting the industry through grape growing and winemaking and barrels, et cetera. And then, they just don't have alcohol in them. But we producers like me, my winery is Oceano, and we make single vineyard non-alcoholic wines, and we make them like we would make any fine wine. So we really pay attention to quality every step of the way. And actually, it's more difficult to make non-alcoholic wine than it is to make regular wine, because once you've made the wine, then there's extra steps. And so
Okay.
there's skill involved that traditional winemakers don't have, and you have to learn in order to produce great non-alcoholic wines.
Okay, so explain that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, let's see. When our program, AFNA Wine Certified, covers this, and we talk about what contribution does alcohol make to wine?
Okay.
And when you remove it, how does that affect the wine? So how does the de-alcoholized wine, how does it differ to wine with alcohol? So we have to make changes, ameliorate the de-alcoholized wine, because
Okay.
alcohol gives it body, so that, texture, the volume that you taste. And you can really tell if you go from a lower alcohol wine to a higher alcohol wine.
Okay.
So when that's removed, we have to either replace it with something, or we have to do extra work in the cellar before the alcohol is removed.
Okay.
So the alcohol is contributes body, but it also is like an aroma delivery system. So it takes the aromatic compounds out of solution. It releases them so those compounds are redolent and you can smell them easily. When you remove the alcohol, it's less pronounced.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of technical aspects to removing alcohol and then the aromatics. So you can simply remove the ethanol from a wine, and then you have, for example, an alcohol-free wine. And I know we could get into the differences of alcohol-free and non-alcoholic or de-alcoholized. And that wine can be 0.0% an alcohol-free wine. Now, the aromatic compounds bind or want to bind with the ethanol. So once you add those, you recover the aromatic compounds from the distillate, from the ethanol, and then you add it back in as what we call an essence. And that's when you get the elevated alcohol by volume percentage up to less than 0.5%, which is an alcohol removed or de-alcoholized wine.
Okay.
So there's that, but there's also, okay, well, how do we build texture? What is that ingredient? So when you look at a non-alcoholic wine label, you're going to see the ingredients listed. And someone who is certified will know what each ingredient does. It's a
Okay.
tool. They're all tools. And what is the job? So that's when non-alcoholic wine, you have to adjust it
Mm-hmm.
for it to be market ready.
Okay. Okay. Well, and so that's what the certification, the AFNA Wine Certified, will actually teach all of that to a bartender or food and beverage director at a restaurant or convention center.
Someone on the floor at a
Right.
retail or,
Mm-hmm.
and, someone who's the beverage captain, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So
Yep.
they'll be able to know their wines and their non-alcoholic wines by heart. And they can explain to their team how to sell these wines and how to represent these wines. So we cover production, but we also cover sensory evaluation.
Okay.
So you'll know when a non-alcoholic wine is faulted and you'll know why.
Okay.
And then we cover labeling, regulations, service, merchandising, market trends, all of that. So there's a foundational aspect and then an advanced aspect to the program.
Okay. Now, what about like sommeliers? I mean, have you had good success in introducing them into the education of these non-alcoholic wines, and have you seen them like like with gumption jump into this?
Some do.
Yeah.
Sommeliers, their purpose is to understand and teach. So learn and teach about wine and represent wine and enhance the guest experience. And so sommeliers would really benefit from this program because they're hungry for knowledge. Like they love wine. They want to get gritty. They want to know everything about it. And this program does that because there's a huge knowledge gap when it comes to non-alcoholic wine, how they're made, how you determine quality in a non-alcoholic wine, and what are the signals when you look at a bottle that can tell you what level of quality is in that bottle.
Okay. And and from a sommelier and then down to that beverage manager at a convention center or a hotel, I mean, different levels of knowledge, but they all need to know it because to me, this is a huge opportunity to meet a new market and to still continue to make money. And last week in my conversation with Kevin from Tempo by Hilton, he's like, since they've introduced the non-alcoholic program into their hotels, 25% of their sales are on non-alcoholic consumption, which is huge.
Yeah.
Not sodas, like non-alcoholic spirits. And that's a huge opportunity.
Definitely. If you're not drinking alcohol, it doesn't mean you don't want a glass of wine.
Right.
And when I'm at an event or a restaurant and I'm not consuming, I drink alcohol, but I'm not consuming alcohol that evening, or I don't want to consume alcohol all night long, I'll stay longer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I drink both.
Right.
But I'll drink less if it's not an option. Do you want me to drink filtered tap water, or do you want me to order a glass of non-alcoholic wine?
Which is a higher price point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Water has zero cost to you, right?
That's
You're not
right.
making any money on that.
It's complimentary.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I like to drink wine, and I pair my food with wine. So if I go to a restaurant or an event and they're offering juice or soda, that's not going to pair with my meal. And or they have one non-alcoholic beer on the list, and I don't drink, no offense to my beer folks, I don't drink beer unless it's a really hot day. And I don't necessarily consider a 0 proof cocktail to complement my meal.
I was probably last year, Kate and from Zero Proof Collective, and they had done an event with a chef, and he loves the whole concept of pairing the wines and the cocktails with the food that he's making, because he can bring out the flavors or use the flavors of the wine to enhance his food and vice versa. You want to do that with even with the non-alcoholic. So have you done a lot of programs like that?
We are, yes, I would
Yeah.
say it's still a leap for restaurants to get
Hmm.
there, but those that are open to it, there's some really amazing creative opportunities. So I mean, the other thing is you're not going to have intoxicated guests, or you'll
Right.
have a less amount of those. So that's important for the other guest experience and for them
Hmm.
wanting to come back and their safety as well. What I like to think about is you want to keep the guest engaged as long as possible, and you
Hmm.
know want to keep them at the table, increasing their check value as long as possible.
What, okay, let's talk because we're talking like let's make some more money. What's the price point of non-alcoholic wine compared to wine? And I was watching the Today Show this morning and somebody brought Al Roker a bottle of wine from 1996, which was when he started at the Today Show. And I can only imagine how much that bottle of wine costs, but how like when a beverage manager is deciding on um incorporating non-alcoholic wine into his program, are the bottles the same price? Is he going to make more, are they going to make more money at it? How does that work?
I mean, it's generally speaking, that's up to the restaurant to decide what their margins are. But there are a range of price points in non-alcoholic wine, and you're really going to understand the, you know, the reason why more expensive ones are because the quality is better. You know, it's so easy to recognize quality in non-alcoholic wine because it doesn't have the alcohol to cover up for it.
Hmm. Okay. So, I mean, kind of going back to the vintage and the sense of place, how do you describe that when you're talking about Oceana and then Oceana Zero? I mean, what does that, when you're describing it to sell it to somebody, what do you explain?
Oceano, so I make wines with alcohol,
Hmm.
with very low alcohol. I have a line called Ultra, and it's 3.5%
Okay.
ABV. And then I have Oceano Zero. And I talk about, you know, when you make a single vineyard wine, it's typically because it's a very high quality vineyard.
Okay.
So I talk about how the attributes of the vineyard, the climate, the elevation, the exposure, how that affect the taste of the wine.
Hmm.
And it's just as so with our Oceano Zero wines. They have the same fingerprint as our traditional wines. You can smell the style. So you can smell and taste not only the hallmarks of the vineyard, but also the hallmarks of the brand. So we
Okay.
have a certain style or way, you know, when are we picking, what barrels do we use, what yeast do we use, what is our program? So there's one particular vineyard that I work with called Spanish Springs. There are, you know, a couple dozen, maybe three wineries that source from that vineyard, and they buy Pinot, they buy Chardonnay, they buy Syrah, but
Okay.
they taste different than mine do because they have a different style.
Okay.
So, you know, not, we don't want to complicate wine too much. But when you're coming to like high-end wines, high-end non-alcoholic wines, these things are indicators, they're signals of quality, and they enhance the experience. So, Oceano Zero, all of our grapes come for our 2023 vintage, come from Spanish Springs Vineyard. It's a mile and a half from the ocean. So it's an
Okay.
ancient seabed. All these things affect the flavor of the wine, but you know, we don't just have one type of wine. You know, these things make wine more interesting. If you smell the wines side by side, you can smell the similarity, whether it has alcohol or not. And some of that is due to the fact that we have great alcohol removal partners. But another thing is that we don't add any natural flavor. We don't add flavors or extracts to change the aromatic profile of our non-alcoholic wines
Mhm.
because we're really looking for that sense of place,
Okay.
meaning like the origin of the grapes, traceability,
Mhm.
where did this wine come from? And you'll have other non-alcoholic wines or wine alternatives out there that use added flavors because they're not looking for that traditional wine character, which is
Mhm.
totally cool. Not everyone who's interested in non-alcoholic wines is, cares about those
Right.
traditions. And you could really, think about younger generations that don't have those expectations, those traditional values. And they're just
Mhm.
looking for something that tastes good, pairs well with their food, and is a wine-like experience.
And I just like the whole idea of pairing. And I'm thinking also of my friend Sarah Jane, who took a wine education course. I'm like, I want to have her take this too. She's in San Diego, but how do you? And I'm not a wine drinker. I've never been a wine drinker, and I don't drink. I'm also allergic to yeast, so it keeps me from drinking that
No,
sort.
no, no.
Right, exactly. But how is that whole process of pairing a wine with your drink, whether it's non-alcoholic versus alcoholic? And could you like versus you looking at yours specifically, I'm like, can you take your alcoholic wine and your non-alcoholic wine in the same like Pinot and serve them with the same dish? Or is that going to be different?
You could. You
Okay.
could do that with wines with alcohol,
Mhm.
It depends on the acidity level. So that's a big thing with food
Mhm.
pairing.
Right.
And then, the weight of the wine or the flavor profile. So,
Mhm.
like fish is a good example that you could drink both Chardonnay or Pinot Noir with. But, whether it's with or without alcohol, they still pair well with food. You just really need to try it out, you
Right.
know, try different things.
Yeah.
Get curious.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and so have you, I mean, with the certification which launched in August, is that right? Of last
It
year?
did, and it's
Yeah.
completely online. So your friend in San Diego
Okay.
can take the course from home.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
And
so it's completely online. And then we have a learning manual that could be purchased on Amazon.
Mhm.
And so let's see, the certification program takes about, if you're quick, 3 hours.
Okay.
Uh, if you want to be like really studious, 4.
Okay.
And so we just uh, launched it on Amazon. It's in Kindle form. Maybe by now it's in print form. You can order it in print. And
Okay.
that's a great way to study. So you've taken the course, you're certified, you tell your employer, hey, I'm AFNA Wine Certified. I can handle this program. I can build out your non-alcoholic wine program. And then the
Mhm.
learning manual is something that you can always have, at your side so you can reference it. So
Mhm.
it's really important to have both. But I think that anyone would be very, very surprised of the depth that we go into and how much there is to learn about non-alcoholic wine.
And have you seen success with people who've taken it and implemented it into their beverage programs?
Yeah,
And what
easily. It's like an
and what if they're
immediate,
like aha things?
it's an immediate unlock, and they have a better understanding of how to build the program and how to speak to the
Mhm.
consumer. Is sometimes you feel when something's new, you could feel like, imposter syndrome. or a fish out of water.
Mhm.
So it really helps people command and build a rapport and a foundational respect with their customer who is, I mean, it's not even like such a big deal. People like to drink non-alcoholic wine. Some people are sober, are in sobriety. So it's very important um, if you have someone like that as a guest, it's important to say, okay, this is a non-alcoholic wine. It's alcohol free, and on the bottle, alcohol free, it'll say, and it'll tell you the alcohol content. So you know that's safe to serve to your guest who's in sobriety. Um, but they might not be as sensitive to that.
Right.
It all depends. So it's an opportunity to get to know your guests more, build a
Mhm.
rapport, a relationship, builds loyalty, and you'll be like the go-to place for people who, I'm not saying look, this isn't like a sober thing, people who are just looking for great options of adult non-alcoholic beverages. So it brings more people and it's searchable, like you're on
Right.
Open Table or whatever. If you have a great program or you're recognized or you've an awesome like social media, people are going to come to you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like me searching whenever I'm in a city, I'm searching for gluten-free restaurants. They're going to search for that
Same
as
thing.
well. Yeah. Hmm.
Or
Yeah.
vegetarian,
Right. Exactly.
it's a preference. It just has had a lot of stigma around it, you know, I don't know, because of sobriety or
Hmm.
overconsumption or I mean this might be insensitive, but I liken it to people are afraid like, don't touch my alcohol. Like there's
Right.
something to guard. Like
Right.
it's not a big deal. No one's coming to take your alcohol away.
Right.
There's like, and I believe in the industry, there's been like a badge of courage associated with drinking
Hmm.
and how much you could drink, especially when you're younger. But in the industry, there's quite a lot of consumption of alcohol, whether you're serving or you're in distribution
Or
and
event planning. Yeah.
or event planning.
Hmm.
Exactly. So you get in like this, maybe not you, obviously, but get in this mind about it where it's like, it's like something that you identify with the
Right. Hmm.
alcohol.
Yeah.
It does a disservice to the hospitality industry at large.
Right. It does. Yeah. Because it has a connotation and we want to make sure that everybody has a place at the table or at the bar. Let's go sit next to Norm and not have him make fun of my drink, right? And I like Tempo last week described too that they're using a um, coaster. One side is black and one side is white, and that lets the bartender know like if you're with alcohol or without alcohol without having to, it allows them to re-pour you a glass of wine and knowing what you want, the color of your
Yeah,
coaster.
it's great. It's also
Yeah.
knowing like what to offer you,
Right. Hmm. Yeah.
and what type of it's a, what type of conversation you might
Right.
want to have. So that's amazing because it's a safety concern too. You might be
Yeah.
pregnant
Hmm.
or it's religious reasons or medical reasons. There's so many reasons not to drink alcohol and
Hmm.
that leads to what you were talking about earlier, which is you're increasing the guests that you're serving. So
Hmm.
it increases the total addressable market,
Right.
non-alcoholic, adult non-alcoholic beverages, especially adult non-alcoholic wine in a restaurant setting
Right.
or event setting where people are consuming food while
Hmm.
drinking.
Now, where have you seen success in placing the non-alcoholic wine on a menu? Like there's a restaurant that I go to in New Bern, and they put a little like twig next to the cocktails and saying this one can be made without alcohol. How have you seen it be successful? Is there a variety of ways to make it successful? Like, hey, here's the list of non-alcoholics, and it's like this small or whatever.
Yeah, or it's at the back of the menu.
Right.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
it's with soda.
Right.
Do
Hmm.
not do that. It should be front and center where say you
Hmm.
have a list, what's by the glass, for
Uh-huh.
example, and you should have your non-alcoholic wines listed by the glass along with the wines with alcohol. It needs to
Okay.
be front and center for people to know that it's there. And
Right.
if it's something that's new to your program and people don't know about it, even if it's not a non-alcoholic wine, say it's a new dish that you have, or it's a new whatever it is, a new, cocktail, you're going to promote it at each table, or
Hmm.
you're training your staff to talk about it. So
Right.
for it to be successful and to gain adoption, it's the same thing. So you have to let people know that it's there. You have to talk it up.
Hmm.
Um, and it helps to put it on a pairing menu. So if you're at say, a fine dining restaurant, or just under like each food
Right.
menu item, right, what it pairs with.
Oh, that's an awesome idea. Hmm.
It could pair with wine with alcohol, wine without alcohol, a low alcohol wine,
Hmm.
whatever. And we talk so much about with and without. We're such like a binary society.
Right.
There's people moderate. I drink both in one setting. So if someone orders a non-alcoholic wine, they're not necessarily dry,
Hmm.
but I think it's also restaurants should consider adding low alcohol wines to the menu too. I don't know if you remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or maybe they still do it. It's like a really big thing in bars to put the ABV of beer,
Okay.
because beer can really range. It could
Hmm.
be 3.5, could be
Yep.
8%, like whatever. So at that time, I would choose my beer based upon the amount of alcohol, how much I consume that night, etc. And that would be awesome for programs to include ABVs on the wines as well, because wines might be 8%, 11%,
Hmm.
13%, 15%. And it's information for guest safety, of
Right.
course.
Yeah.
And the non-alcoholic wines, just treat it all in the same way.
Okay, so let's just talk about those, the 0%, the alcohol free, the de-alcohol. Where can you purchase these? I mean, like I'm in North Carolina and we have ABC stores. So the ones that have the low alcohol, do they have to be purchased at the ABC store
If
or
it has alcohol, it has to be purchased at if
okay.
you're in a control state, it
Yeah.
has to be purchased at the ABC store.
Okay.
But non-alcoholic wines can be sold anywhere. I mean, that's not true in New York City. You can't buy non-alcoholic at a wine store, for example. It's illegal. But most states, you can purchase non-alcoholic wine anywhere.
Hmm.
So you know, you could ask for it even at, a grocery store anywhere, and see if they'll consider carrying it. Being in North Carolina, it might be tough, or perhaps Raleigh is a little bit easier, closer to,
Right.
more of a city. New York City, there are more options, and, major markets like that. But I find the best way to see what's out there is to do a Google search.
Okay.
Most compelling non-alcoholic wines, especially for smaller markets, are found
Hmm.
online.
Okay. Yep.
That's
And
how people found Oceano Zero,
okay.
just
And
by
they can purchase
typing in.
directly from you versus having to get it through a distributor depending on
That's
where they
right.
are.
That's
Okay.
right. There's lower compliance hurdles. There's also, these online marketplaces like the Zero Proof or Boisson. Those are customers of mine. You can order from them, and there's no adult signature required
Okay.
for delivery.
Okay. That's
So
awesome.
that's
Yep.
like even
Hmm.
more frictionless. But I can sell Oceano Zero direct to retailers and restaurants. I don't need a three-tier distributor.
Okay. That
You know
helps a lot. That reduces the cost.
Well, maybe not necessarily, because in three-tier, it's very hard to recover, make up a margin in three-tier for any producer. It's not really lowering the cost, but it's opening up variety, because distributors aren't with it yet. They do have non-alcoholic wines, but maybe not, the smaller producers, the higher end producers. They might have like free or, these like massive commercial non-alcoholic wines. And a good way to taste test is online, but eventually these distributors will carry more of nuance and variety. But, get on 750. It's a wholesale search system marketplace. So like a restaurant or a retailer can research in their state. You have to sign up. But who carries non-alcoholic wine? Which distributors? So I would go there. And then there are other wholesale online options like Air Goods. And there's a lot of non-alcoholic wine bought and sold on Air Goods. This is wholesale. So that's if you're a retailer, restaurant, event planner, that is a great way to access non-alcoholic wine, and you don't need a license. So a distributor may have an issue delivering or setting you up as a customer if you don't have an alcohol license and you're an event planner.
Right. Okay.
But you don't need a license to buy and sell non-alcoholic wine or adult non-alcoholic beverages.
I do have a couple of rapid fire questions for you, because this is so interesting. And I really think this is a huge opportunity for restaurants and events to carry this and offer this. Best food for pairing your Oceano Zero? Depends on which
I was thinking about that. I like sushi a lot, because there's a lot of different ways you can prepare it, a lot of different flavors. You can use a torch, you can bring out the fat. So recently I enjoyed my Oceano Zero wines with sushi. They're currently sold out, but get on the waiting list. But so sushi is fun. Things that are flavorful are fun.
Okay. I like that. All right. And then finish the sentence. Every event beverage program should include non-alcoholic wine because it increases your revenue. Okay. That's a good point. Yeah. It's going to keep people there. Like you said earlier, that's so smart. Okay, so I put links down here of how to reach you and the Wine Certified program. There's your Oceano Wines website link and your Instagram. Is that also your Facebook handle, or is that just your Instagram handle?
Just reach me on Instagram. I'm not really into the Facebook.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tracy.
Right. Yeah, you're welcome.
Pleasure.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.